This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it's time for Avoid the Maze, your journey through life. And my guest today is Tom Meyers, and he is with us all the way from Brussels, Belgium. And I'll tell you, Tom, when I was growing up and thinking about getting into broadcasting, um, I never would have believed that you could have done an instant connect like we have done today. Um, so it is exciting to me. And it's even more exciting to me because I didn't get into broadcasting when I wanted to back in the late 60s and early 70s. It took me a long time to get to where I am. But I'm getting to meet people like yourself who are finding a way to maneuver through this maze of life. And as I often say, when we're young children, there are people who are guiding us, and they have many ideas of who we are going to be. And sometimes they tell us who they expect us to be. But the reality of it is, we have that free choice to become who we want to be. So take us on a little journey and tell us about how you've maneuvered and how you've gotten to where you are today.
Hey, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. And yes, it's absolutely fantastic that with all these technological developments that we can speak instantaneously over oceans without any lagging, as it used to be when you had a phone call from Australia or something like that to Belgium, and then you had to talk and then wait till the other person talked. And now all of that is over. Fant Fantastic. Because I'm from born in 1970 in Antwerp, and to make a life story very short, because I've been meandering quite a while, looking for my ways. But my early years, apparently, my dad and my family said that I always said I wanted to be a chef. So that means cooking, like in the kitchen, and apparently that was about my first words. So after mom and dad, I hope, I want to be a chef. If that's true or not, I don't know. I just had to take their word on it. And then when the choice came when I was about 12 to go into secondary school, not knowing what I wanted to do, I decided, well, if chef what I always wanted to be, again, I didn't really realize that consciously, then I go to catering school. And in Belgium, we have that opportunity that from 12, you can go into a professional education. And also my cousin was also going to that school. So it facilitated things, and I was a bit scared of everything else. So, just go there. That's
Yeah.
safe. And also, and that's also interesting, it was the least conflict, right?
Right.
When you're younger, conflict, I was not very good in conflict management, and I wanted the things to be safe and something assured, so nothing too strange, right? Today, that's very different. But yeah, so, and after 7 years of catering school, I doubled 1 year. I finished, and the next step was, okay, what now? And some of my colleagues, some students, they went to marketing. We say, oh, I'm going to do that too. That's the future. So we are talking about 1989, I think, and failed miserably. And it was the first year that I thought that I'd studied. So, but with my tail between my legs, I went home, really fearing the wrath of my father, and told him, really, I was so scared. I tell you, I was so scared. And my dad just answered, say, but why don't you go and work on cruise ships? That was like the least thing I was expecting, because apparently also, that was one of the things I had said. I wanted to work on cruise ships. So life took me on this kind of, escalator. I never really thought about what I wanted myself. And it was always being told and do this and do that. And then life took me to the next place and to the next place. And I ended up living in England for about 8 years while traveling, also doing some backpacking, working on a cruise ship on the Queen Elizabeth II, in total 2.5 years, and working in hotels, restaurants, ended up into wine. And then my time was over and I came back to Belgium in what was it? That was 1998, December of 1998. Got a job in the wine, selling wines, but I also found myself 3 months later being fired because I was not good at it. And actually, I was like a salesman, right? And going into somebody's restaurant to sell my wines, I was, it took me 15 minutes to pick up the courage to even enter. And most of the time I drove away. I didn't even enter. I just couldn't do it. It's like cold calling, it's like, no way. Okay. So, and then it's what a phone call of a friend came and said, Tom, what are you doing? Yeah, I just lost my job. He said, hey, why don't you start your own deli, like a shop selling charcuterie, cheese, wine? Because in the 8 years that I had been away, he had been starting that and was very successful, had a very beautiful wife, had a big business, had a BMW car, motorbike, house, kid. And what did I have? Nothing. So what he had, that was nice, right? And so it was handed to me on a silver platter, and like the universe said, here you are, Tom, this is for you. Your life is now settled. But again, others directed it, right? And this silver platter, this golden opportunity became a prison because I opened it on 9/9/99, and 2 months later I was suicidal depressive, and it was not working. I was not in my place, and I really felt imprisoned because now here was the universe telling me, from Tom, this is for you. You're going to be successful. You're going to have esteem in your community and all of that. Just the finances, everything just dropped away from me. And I thought, if this is what life is all about, I don't want it, because life cannot be this, this without meaning, without purpose. Every time when you do something and you think great, and then 2 months later, boom, that carpet is pulled from under your feet and you fall on your face again. This cannot be real. That makes no sense. I also had my mother has been ill all her life, and she's also struggled a lot with psychological problems. And I was seeing I was becoming her. And I said, no, this can't be. And that's a day when in my shop, when the local pharmacist came in, and she gave me a little note with a name and a phone number. And she said, this person will help you. It was the first person in my life. So I was 29 at the time. The first person in my life to whom I talked about my problems, about my life, about my, my insecurities and all of that. And she, her pharmacy was about 2 doors, 3 doors further. Nobody in my family knew. Not my friends did not know. My dad actually found out about my situation then in 2018 when he read my book, Futurize Yourself. He and my mother never, ever knew. And, but by the way, I prepared my dad for the book. I said, from Dad, there's things in the book that you don't know about. I love you. We have a very good relationship. And he answered to that a couple of months before. Said, from Tom, we all have our secret garden, and one day that will be revealing itself. And that's okay. So I have a wonderful relationship with my dad for a long time, not in the beginning. That's also, but there you go. And this name and this number was from a psycho-astro consultant, an astrologer. In the we're talking the year 1999 here, right? 2000 or something like that. That's so desperate, people. Who goes to that? That is like, whatever, Anna Marie, what do you come? We had great talks, but this, really? And 1 month later, I was sitting at a wooden desk with this stern-looking woman, gazing down on me, staring at me and saying, what are you doing here? It was not like this niceties from, hello, how are you? It's so nice to meet you. No. What are you doing here? And this is something that changed my life. Because already just that one question, if I think of, it's 25 years ago, and if I think about it, what are we doing here? Why are you listening to this podcast? Why are you reading like these self-help books? Why? And what is it that you want? And suddenly I had this inspiration in that moment, as if look, a part of me is doing this and another part is doing that. And there is a conflict. I feel there's a conflict. And there is personality, individuality. There's like a conflict in me. And what I want is this harmony. I want to know what that is. And she said, okay, tell me your story. In a way that you're asking me my story, but a bit more elaborate with all the little details included. But again, it's so interesting to start with, what is it what we are seeking? What is the situation we're in and what do we seek? So you have a sort of a conflict and a wish, right? From what you actually want. Remember that, because it's important in creating a DNA for your future, that what does not alter. By the way, that's DNA, my DNA. And so the whole story became like that bringing that past and associating from this present moment, this conflict. Where does that come from? What are the limiting beliefs? What are the experiences that you've blown up out of proportion because you didn't know very well? You didn't know how to look differently. And she helped me to see what I've blown up, the limiting beliefs. And she said, but no, look at it like this. Yeah, my dad had said on bad moments, Tom, you're good for nothing. I can't be proud of you, and so forth. And that was in moments of frustration, right? And I was not a good student. And then he would go to work and had nothing to say about me, while his colleagues were all proud about their kids. And for me, what did I say about you? Nothing. But of course, I had traveled around the world. I'd worked on a cruise ship, which is one of the most renowned and prestigious cruise ships in the world. I had done all the things that many people can dream of, and I thought I was good for nothing because my shop failed. By the way, stop me if you want to push in, because I can talk like this for hours, right? But anyway, so she helped me to change the perspective and say lower these self-harming and limiting beliefs, but look what you've done, and she got that out of me. So she said, Tom, it's not because it's somewhere I started to realize, it's not something she said, but I realized that it's not because I'm good for nothing now that I can't be good at something, or that I wasn't good at something. So changing perspective on these experiences suddenly changes the flow of the present and the future.
Absolutely.
So that was so valuable. So 2 hours we talked about this. And then she gave me homework just before I went home. And she asked me, Tom, you've been putting your friends and all these people's like on a pedestal, like they are better than you and you are nothing. Describe to me, in what are they exactly better? So in a way, they're so good and I can't do that. And so that was a very important element. Okay, we were frozen there for a while,
but I could hear you.
Okay, so and so in the second question she gave me, why do people come to you and not your friends? So that is what do you attract? Yeah? And then the third question was, what have you done where you felt, I wish I could do this forever? You know, like the moments where you had that sense of flow in your life already, where time passed and you say, oh, where is time going? You know, and what did you do in that moment? And really, you know, you're depressed, suicidal, you have a business that's failing. These questions, you go to somebody that I thought was going to give me answers.
No.
No. But the answer lies within. And that's what she gave me the right questions to find the answers within me. And so I wrote that down, and this was discussed for another 2 hours. And there were 5 things that came out of that. So turns out in me, there was a therapist, a communicator, a teacher, researcher, and traveler. Somebody who needed freedom. So what was I doing selling charcuterie and cheese? Why was I in a shop in 4 walls living there, which was 7 by 7? I could not escape, while there was somebody who needed freedom. Of course, I was not feeling well. I was not in my element.
Right.
I was not in my element because I was not working within my potential. And so when that was discussed, another question. Now imagine an ideal day in 10 years' time. God, I have problems now, I'm financially, struggling. I don't feel well. Thinking about the future, who cares, solve me problems now. So you always go back into these kind of patterns. But the good thing was, Karen, I was scared of her. She intimidated me. She was intimidating. And so I did my homework. I was a bit naive. I was a bit like young for my age. So I did my homework and was thinking, okay, so what I'm feeling, I don't want to feel like this. I want to feel content, fulfilled, and healthy. And I want to realize my aspirations, right? My aspirations to have a good life, to have meaning and purpose, and we evolve as a person. And wouldn't I get that if I put my potential into action? Wouldn't life become more meaningful and purposeful? And would it be not a bit more of a flow? Why else would I be born if I have this and you have different potential? So I wrote a story, and the essence of that is I'm a therapist who has developed his own approach, who has written a book about it, and who is asked around the world to give presentations and workshops. And here we are.
So much of what you have shared is what we all go through. But some of us are afraid to break out. We're going to stay in that mold. We're going to do what we're doing because we don't want to make a mistake if we step out of that mold. And I was that way for the majority of my life. So right around my 55th birthday, I was loving what I was doing. I was working in corporate America. I loved my students, but I hated the culture. The culture was killing me. And that's what you're sort of talking about, stuck in that, 7 by 7 room. Well, guess what? That's what I was stuck in. But when my students would come in, I was totally different because I could communicate with them. They could communicate with me. But about 5 years later, I was sort of pushed out because the culture didn't like the way I was doing it. I was successful, but not in the way they wanted me to be. And when I got kicked out, and that's the best way for me to describe it, it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me. Because I had to turn around and say, look, I'm going to be 60 years old. I don't want to live with regrets. I loved what I did. I want to remember that part of it. But how can I take that and move forward? I had never done that in my past. It was always I looked at, oh, I did this poorly, so I shouldn't do this anymore. Not, hey, I did this well. How can I keep doing it? And in our society, we don't give people enough leeway to do that. We expect people just to go take a job and work at it and make a living and make everybody else around them happy, even when they're miserable. So, how did you finally find your true happiness?
Well, you know, distilling that story over the years, and I'm distilling it again. Yeah, because my first book, Futurize Yourself, Design Your Life on Purpose, I started writing that 10 years ago without knowing anything about foresight, futures thinking, and personal futures and so forth. And so now looking back at it, I'm like really, rediscovering even more layers within that. And the main layer is, I said it before, like finding that DNA for your future. So DNA, that what does not alter. Because the great thing about, the problem of today and the great thing about today is that the change is very fast, right? And the future is very uncertain. If you look at, there are so many scenarios opening up, and probably we're living many scenarios at the same time. But if one has no basis, that's very scary.
Yes.
And if you don't have a path forward, something to hold on to, then that is, that is then the void.
Right.
The void, and not avoid the maze, but avoid and the maze.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And how I find that happiness plays in a way is that by having defined my, and I didn't call it my DNA for the future then, because you have two strands and bonds within a DNA, biological DNA. So two strands, health and well-being. What do I want to feel? Content, fulfilled, healthy. My well-being is my aspirations. So what do I aspire to have a good, resilient, evolvable, actionable, and transcendent life? So a great life, i.e. future. But that is, and at 80 or 90, I still want that, right? It's not going to change. I've always wanted it in the past, and I will, even if I get 1,000 years old, that's still what I want. And my potential, that's what I'm born with, that does not alter either. So the bonds is what creates, when you express that is what creates what you want to feel and what you're aspire towards. And, I'm looking back 25 years, it's true. And a DNA is this solid, it's a basis that does not alter, but can be expressed in different ways. Today, I'm a therapist. At 90, 100, I'm in a retirement home. I'm still a therapist. I express this today as an osteopath at 90, 100, listening to the nurses complain maybe. Right? I'm still a therapist. I will still be meaningful, purposeful. I still will feel that I'm contributing something within that therapy. And that is what brings me to somewhere, it's not happiness, but the contentment and the fulfillment that brings joy. And that brings moments of, like amazement. Because whatever it goes ahead, there is always going to be strife. There is always going to be difficulties. There is always going to be failures. And there's going to be successes. And there's going to be moments where you're blocked. And when there is things are going again difficultly, there is like conflict, there is resistance. Okay, stop. Take a step back. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Is this conflict because you've deviated from your path and you're living somebody else's dream again? Or is it because you're growing? Yes. A bodybuilder does, this is a pen. A bodybuilder does not do bodybuilding with this. It's resistance, but you need to know where you're going to see if the resistance that you have is for your growing or not. And if it's for your growing, then you say, okay, what do I need to try to overcome this? And sometimes I go to an osteopath, sometimes I go to an acupuncturist, sometimes I need a coach, and sometimes I just need a holiday.
You know, I've shared this on many of my shows, but there is a group that I belong to on Facebook, and it is typically women 50 and up. And I hear so much of the time how they feel worthless, that they never reached their potential, that things maybe not going right in their relationships, whether it be children, friends, husband, doesn't make any difference. And I'm so glad I had not come across this type of conversation 20 years ago, because that's probably the dialogue I would have had. But what I try to share is we can sit around in this pity party, which is what I call it, if you choose not to take the steps forward into where you want to be. And where you want to be today may be totally different tomorrow. And that's okay as long as you pivot. Don't stay stuck. And that's why I created Avoid the Maze. I don't want people to be stuck thinking that, is this all there is? I mean, when you were, 29 years old and asking, is this all there is? You were lucky to find the right person, even though she scared you, okay? The right person to say, I need you to think. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You need to think about what you want to do. I was watching an old TV program early this morning that was on in the 50s here in the United States. It's called Leave It to Beaver. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when he was a very little boy, and his brother, I think is probably maybe 5 to 7 years older than him. His brother goes away for the weekend, and this little boy is lost because he expects his big brother to tell him where to go, who to play with, what to do. Big brother's not there. So he wanders around all day long trying to find things to do and play with people. Nobody wants to play with him because he's going really to his brother's friends. And as I was watching it, I thought about how dependent we become on other people to tell us who we are. And yet you have proven that we're the only ones who can tell us who we are. Nobody else can do that for us.
No, and it's what I often say, as an osteopath, I was an osteopath specialized in stress, and I have people find me who have been to 10 different places, doctors, and they all say something different, but nothing helps. And then they find me on their path. And many people also with challenges in their lives. And the question is, if not you, who?
Yep.
You're always, as I was as well, I was always blaming other people, and I was always relying on other people until that Elena told me, it's up, take care of yourself, Tom. I also had a mom that was ill, and then I was her our psychologist from the age of 14 or something like that. She had a psychologist, but she told me everything, all her problems. I always had people talking about their problems to me. Even in my shop, it's like from the least place you expected, there was people talking about their problems. And I thought it was a very negative thing, by the way. And I thought, Tom is like a bin, you're just unloaded with him. That's,
Right.
And she made me see from Tom, but it's not that. It's like just you radiate that. People trust you somehow. People feel that about you, that they can do that. It's a positive thing. It's change of perspective. I'm not a bin. I'm not useless. I'm a born therapist, and people sense that in me. But also there, I have to tell them, and luckily I can. I'm 55. I have a lot of experience. I've had a very different experiences that brought me some kind of empathy for other people. And so I said to my mom as well, I said, Mom, thank you for being my mom. Because she culpabilized a lot about, what have I done to you? I said, Mom, look who I've become. Yeah, because all of that is helping me now. I've dealt with it. I had to do that. I did it. I had some help. I've been transforming it into things that are helping me now in my job. So other people feel that I've never lived what they lived, but they feel understood. They feel that there is enough baggage for them to say I'll trust him. Right? And so, yes, we have to say that to people, to say look, it's not selfish to be selfish.
Absolutely.
You have to, at one stage, you have to be selfish. You have to take care of numero uno. And when the astrologer told me that about my mom, please, Tom, leave your mom. Take care of yourself now. It's not about ignoring your mom, but it's like step back a little bit. Take care of yourself. Don't worry about your mom. And once I did that, and I started to build myself up, I saw that my mom was getting better, right? Because she did not worry about me. So suddenly you see how this kind of, how when you change, your environment changes. Until she found somebody else at the time too.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because right before the holidays, actually on Christmas Eve, I broke my shoulder. And I've been the type of person that in the house specifically, I just do it all. It's not that my husband can't do it, but we've been together 41 years. A lot of things I just never asked him to do. So he has tunnel vision because Karen's going to do it. Why should he? And our son was visiting for the holidays, and my husband looked at him as, well, you're going to help mom because you're here. And I found that here I was in pain, can't move well, and I have to ask for help. And at first, neither one of them knew how to respond until I finally said, it's my fault because I've done it all. So now I will explain to you what it is I need. My husband has changed dramatically in the past month. It's if he's going down to have breakfast, he'll ask me, do you want to come have breakfast with me? What are you having for breakfast? In 41 years, he never asked those questions. But again, it was part of the communication and the observance, because not that I thought they were incapable all those years, but I knew I was capable, and it made me feel good to do all those things. So probably when you were being responsible for your mom, in some ways that made you feel good, even though in some ways it may have been a burden at the same time.
Yeah, you shouldn't be the psychologist of your mom at 14, by the way. And it's yeah, and it's what you're saying is resonating with my story also. It's like how we change, how we, suddenly start to, also address things differently. And how, when we start asking and explaining ourselves in certain situations, how suddenly the environment changes. And it's, if you have like Ho'oponopono, it's also that. Ho'oponopono is this phrase, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's not saying to somebody else, you say that to yourself, because if you say it to yourself, the transformation changes your field and changes the environment. I simplified it, by the way, too, because there was something missing in that mantra for me. So I said, I see you from Avatar. I know. I see you, I heal you, I love you. That's what I say to myself. When there is something difficult or when there is something that I can't control immediately, that's the phrase that I say to myself. Also with my patients, sometimes, I feel sometimes so sorry for people who have terrible experiences. And I've invited that into my life because I have them as a patient. And so I have to say to myself, I see you, I heal you, I love you, and that you do your best so that you can help these people, to get through that trauma, or to elevate them, or that that they can deal with it. Because it's not easy. Cases have become much more complex and difficult. And now also we get people from the war-torn places, from that have all this experience and baggage with them, and then they come here, and it's like, wow, from Palestine. I had somebody from Palestine. My God, you think, then you really relativate your own story. It's peanuts, right? Peanuts.
And even though we're living in this global world, and like I said, when I wanted to go into broadcasting originally, yes, we were global, but nothing like we are today. Sometimes we just assume that if we can take somebody away from the bad that they've experienced and put them in a beautiful environment, that they should just be cured overnight. They should be happy. And the reality of it is, like you've said, we carry that still within us. We have to learn individually how to compartmentalize those feelings and know when it's okay to smile and laugh and be happy. Not that we're forgetting where we came from, but trying to move forward. And I've seen it here in our area too, where refugees have come over and the community gets all upset. Well, why don't they want to stay indoors when it's ice cold out? Well, because they've been living in nature all these years. They don't know, what the real comfort is. And it's like, let's communicate, let's listen. And as you said, we need to listen to hear what they are saying and give them that opportunity to say what they're feeling.
Yeah. And also, in my job, it's like, okay, give them a space to be themselves for a while. And that is with all my patients, because there's a lot of people that come here and they say, this is for me. This is our, because they have kids, the husband, the work. And this is just me time to recuperate, regenerate, to reset themselves. And I try to make my job as light as possible. I'm very serious what I do, but I bring sort of lightness by being who I am. It's just now and then a joke, even if that helps sometimes. I'm not a very jokey person, but there are some things, when you say to a woman or a man, when you manipulated them lightly, oh, you're such a cracking woman or you're a cracking man. I do it with both, right? And suddenly they start to laugh, and that brings lightness, right, into the seriousness, and they feel lighter as an experience physically as well afterwards.
Exactly.
But yeah, but also we as people, I would say privileged people, also, I need to also give that a place. And that other people are struggling, and sometimes it's also difficult, right? Yeah, because you're watching your sandwich and you're watching TV and you see what's happening in Gaza or in Ukraine or whatever, or now in Goma in Africa, and you think from, oh, here I am eating this sandwich and look at these people, and also that you have to give a place, right?
Exactly.
But I know that where I am and what I do, bring that bit of love and tenderness and in the people that you encounter, and because that's what you can do. That's what you can do. Do it.
Exactly.
But, help people into health, into their well-being. This is because if I do that, and so I know that if I help one person, treat one person, I treat a family, I treat their next phone call, person on that other side of the world, right? Because when they feel in pain, like you have with your shoulders, you feel a bit miserable, right? And you feel like the pain, and it works on your psyche, on your behavior. And then sometimes we feel a bit more stressed, and we get more short-tempered, and that has an effect on how we communicate, how we behave. Now, if I can take all of that away in a person, then they go home, and then the partner, the relationship with the partner and the kids is different. Then you make a phone call for a business phone call to the other side of the world, and that phone call is different because even your partner is making a phone call to the other side of the world. He's less stressed because he doesn't have to worry about their sick family member before, and suddenly you're all around the world, right? Yeah. After you're one person, and suddenly within minutes and hours, I'm all around the world having an effect. And see, Tom, that is what you can do. You cannot control the wars, but that you can do.
So how can my listeners follow you and find your books and get more knowledge?
Yeah, I think the best place is LinkedIn, Tom Meyers. Find me there. I have an irregular newsletter there, The Futures Effect, where I post some of my quirky ideas. Also, I also serialized my second book, The Futures Effect, on there, so people can find it there. But my books, Futurize Yourself and The Futures Effect, are all on the Amazons everywhere in the world, so they can find it. Or on the website, futurizeyourself.com, right? Find me there.
Yep. We'll put that all in the show notes, so there's no excuse for anybody not to find you. And Tom, I want to thank you for joining me. I know it's much later in your part of the world than it is here. Sometimes I have to get
prime time
to those time changes. So
yeah, it's prime time here for me. But nearly 7 o'clock in the evening.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening, and we will be in touch.
That was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.